Okay, so I think we can get started with the Trust and Safety Forum, 5th edition. Shall I be able to click? Can we upload the presentation? Unless, oh, it's under my control, nice. Okay, so welcome to the Trust and Safety Forum. We are this thematic event within the huge INCYBER Forum. So we have a meeting for the whole day today in these two rooms, and then tomorrow we have a workshop. I will say a few words about this. So this is a Trust and Safety Forum. So it's all in English, by the way. There will be one session in gaming in French, but otherwise it's all English. This is about trust and safety. So hopefully we will have trust in the organizers, and you will feel in safe and in good hands. This event is co-organized by Caroline Humer and myself. Caroline is on the other side. Each of us will be here all day. Should you have any question, remarks on the event, suggestions, you want to speak next year, reach out to us. We do not bite, and we are very nice. So so we spend a countless number of hours to build this program. So very keen to hear from you today. It's not only Caroline and I, it's really a team behind this. So this is the list of the ambassador and advisors on our strategic committee. So you will, most of them are here today. Shani Ben-Walid is our ambassador. She developed a few sessions she will be moderating today. And so is Jeff Sen and Henry Adams. Henry is in the room and will be the next session. And then Julia Fossi, Camilla Argetti, Flo is also a moderator. They are also here today and helped us develop this program. So what is new this year? What are the main themes? I think the main theme, you do not necessarily see it on the agenda, is the youth, both in terms of how we protect them, and the next session will be how to protect minors from accessing content which is not adequate for their age, but it's also an equally important. Overlooked too much is the voice of the youth. So how much do we listen to them when it comes to their life online? And so we'll have tomorrow a full day workshop closed behind closed doors on how to give them a voice when it comes to their life on platforms in particular. So we have really this approach. So youth is a key theme. Another obvious one, more technical, is AI, Gen AI, agentic AI. We'll have a talk. I don't know why this is showing up so quickly. It should not be. Okay, back here. So yes, AI, Gen AI will be discussed today in the forum. You can check whether it's in this room or the other rooms. Common theme year over year is the role of different stakeholders. This year we have we put a stronger emphasis on the infrastructure providers. So typically the cloud, the domain name registrars, the hosting providers. They have been sometimes not sufficiently involved in the discussion, and we are very happy to have them back in full steam. Also, of course, the platform will be there. There will be a session on this. We have two new topics. Gaming will be discussed for the first time with some projects on gaming, and also influencers and content creators also for the first time will be here. Overall, it's really what we have to do here. It's kind of have a whole society approach, which is really being inclusive, not to focus on one industry or one type of stakeholders. NGOs, civil society play a big role as well. In terms of threats that we are specifically discussing, disinformation plays a lot of role with AI again, so it will be discussed this morning. Image-based sexual violence, so all these deep fakes and all this abuse against in particular women who are heavily exposed to this type of violence will be, we have a big session this afternoon, 1 hour session. Something new that we bring to this edition is wildlife trafficking. First time it is discussed here in this conference, and it's rarely discussed. Human trafficking will be covered as well. And something very difficult, which will be discussed in the next session, is hybrid arms and in particular the COM network, which is a kind of network of offenders and criminals who are abusing, I mean, teenagers in particular, and push them to do self-harm. So that will be, Henry Adams will be the moderator next session here in this room. And the elephant in the room will be, of course, the regulation in the EU and how efficient is regulation after 4 years of the DSA. And this will be in this room toward the end of the day. With this, few more announcements. So this is, you're here in France. We are the only trust and safety conference in continental Europe. But it's not isolated to Europe. 2 dates, 3 dates you may want to remember. If you want to find an excuse to go to Sydney, take your opportunity and join us in Sydney, 8 and 9 of October. In Sydney, there is a kind of magic, someone is playing with this. Trust and Safety Festival, this is something Caroline and I organized with partners in Sydney, and we'll do the 2nd edition mid-October, 13th and 14th of October in New Delhi. And really our vision is to have this kind of discussions from Europe, Asia Pacific, and Australia being part of Asia Pacific, obviously, so that we can bring topics from one region to another. The day tomorrow on the youth is actually brought from New Delhi to here. And the next, you can already schedule the next conference is, next forum will be 9 and 10 of March next year, will be early in the year because Easter is earlier. Almost done. Tonight in the other room, in this floor, the other room, 6 p.m., join us for a cocktail hosted, sponsored by AWS. So you're all welcome, 6 p.m. on this floor, so for a few drinks. Last word to say thank you to our sponsors. This event would not happen without companies that agree to support us. You have all the names, ARCOM and Commission Naman is the Irish regulator or not. Partners per se, but we value enormously their support and to be part of the discussion. With this, it's time to start with the next session on the reason why you're here today. Keeping adult content for adults only, a breakthrough at last, or still just a premise. We are here, the speakers. I'm calling them to join this session. So starting with Emma. Please join Emma Robertiso. You will have your microphone there. Yeah. And then I'm inviting the other panelists. So Greta from the European Commission, Jean-Michel van des Ven from the F2F.com, also a partner. Thank you for verifying my and F2F to be supporting this session. Jeremy Bonin from ARCOM and from ARCOM, the French regulator. And last but not least, Tony Allen from the HCEC certification scheme. Coming from Britain. So Emma, over to you. And remember the phone close to the chin. Yeah, if you want. No.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Welcome today. Thank you for joining us. I'm Emma. I'm head of marketing and partnerships at Verify My. And for those of you that don't know us, we are an online safety tech provider focused on safeguarding children and society online. I'm joined by a fantastic panel today from policy, regulation, standards, platform implementation, who I will let introduce themselves individually in a moment. But today we are here to explore a really important question: keeping adult content for adults only. Are we finally at a breakthrough moment, or is this still more a promise than a reality? So perhaps I will start by asking each of you to introduce yourselves individually. Greta, do you want to go first?
I'll try. Yes, it works. Nice to meet you all. My name is Greta Fajeta, and I'm a case handler at the European Commission working on protection of minors and enforcement of the DSA.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jean-Michel. I'm founder and CEO of F2F.com, a fan engagement platform catering to the adult space. Hello, everybody. My name is Jeremy Bonhomme, the Deputy Director for Online Platforms at ARCOM, which is the French Digital Services Coordinator, so we are enforcing the DSA in France.
And hi, everybody. My name is Tony Allen. I'm Chief Executive of the Age Check Certification Scheme. We test that age verification and age estimation systems work. I'm also the editor of the new International Standard for Age Assurance, ISO 27566, and I've been involved working with regulators and governments around the world on age assurance.
Fab, thanks guys. So for over a decade, policymakers and industry have debated about how we can prevent minors from accessing adult content online. And I think over the last year, we've seen a real shift here. So we're seeing age assurance being actively deployed across the UK, the US, in certain states, Europe, and then more recently in markets like Australia and Brazil. So the question we really want to explore today is this working in practice, or are we still relatively early on in the journey? So Greta, I'm going to start with you and the perspective of the European Commission. So from an EU point of view, how are you approaching the challenge of protecting children from adult content online, particularly under frameworks like the Digital Services Act?
Thank you. Thank you for the question. So the protection of minors online is, of course, a priority for the European Commission, but it's also at the heart of the Digital Services Act, the European flagship law for the responsibility of online platforms. Now, there are specific provisions in the DSA that are directly linked to the protection of minors and that are relevant also for protecting them against adult content platforms. And these are Article 34, 35, and 28. For instance, Article 34 imposes on online platforms, very large ones, the obligation to conduct a comprehensive risk assessment, to analyze and assess how the functioning, the design, or the use of their platform can negatively impact the protection of minors and the enjoyment of their fundamental rights. And then under Article 35, based on this assessment, platforms have the obligation to adopt effective mitigation measures that are tailored, that are proportionate, that are reasonable, and the text of the law specifically mention age verification as a possible effective mitigation measure. And then we have Article 28, which is applicable to all online platforms, so not only very large ones, and requires them to ensure that minors enjoy a high level of privacy, safety, and security. Now, against this framework, the Commission is using its investigatory and enforcement powers to make sure that children enjoy the level of protection and the fundamental rights that are recognized to them in the law, but in practice. So last year, in May 2025, the Commission has opened investigation into 4 adult platforms. These are Pornhub, StripChat, Xvideos, and Xvideos. And these investigations were open, focusing on the risks that minors may face on adult content platforms. And last week, on the 26th of March, the Commission has preliminarily found that these platforms are in breach of the DSA for failing to protect them against exposure to pornographic content. And it has done so exactly relying on the framework that I've just mentioned. So the Commission found that they did not diligently assess the risk that their platforms pose to minors. And even when those risks were identified, that assessment was not diligent. They also found that the mitigations in place were not effective because despite their terms of services stated that the platforms were restricted to minors, so users below the age of 18, actually minors were on the platforms because it was as easy to just declare they were above the age of 18 to access these restricted content. And then it also relied on the guidelines on Article 28 to assess whether they have actually ensured the high level of privacy, safety, and security that they need to ensure.
Thank you so much. And Jeremy, I'm keen to bring that down to kind of a national level. So what has the approach been in France so far? What's working? What do you think are the key challenges?
It's good to have Greta because she's stealing the show because of the announcement of the European Commission last week. So in France, it's been a hot topic. So basically, the criminal law in France since 1993 forbids to expose minors to pornography. It was through offline, it's through online, but it was not found to be enforced online, and a lot of frustration raised. And so in 2020, first law was passed to give Arkham special powers to try to bring pornographic websites that did not check the age of the users to the judge. For various reasons, the judge never decided to order the blocking. And a new law was passed in the same time as the DSA was transposed. It's not the right word, but whatever, in France. So it's in a 2024 law. And so Arkham was given special powers to directly order the blocking of pornographic websites that did not comply with age verification. So we started to enforce this special law, waiting for the DSA to rise and to go full steam. Full steam is coming with the preliminary findings of the European Commission. So we act to website based outside of the EU and based within the EU. The vast majority, the most consumed websites, porn websites consumed in France, are established in the EU. And so there are 17 websites listed on a ministerial order. All of these 17 websites decided to turn on age verification or to get out of the French market. So basically websites that are being run by ALO, they decided to not be accessible anymore from France when you access normally to the internet. So that's the current state of the art. So we see that for these websites, consumption is virtually zero from minors, because we never forbid pornographic websites. We forbid minors to accessing them. So that was national law, but we're also the DSC, so the French DSA regulator. And so we try to help the European Commission in its inquiries, as it is noted in the press release. And we have working groups within the board of the digital services coordinators. And there's a group dedicated to online protection of minors, within which there is a task force on porn platforms. And so we're trying to make all of the 26 other regulators to work in the same direction, so that every single one of us can deal with its own platforms. What we saw with the 17 websites I talked about is that we started to act against the 5 first most visited, because you have to start somewhere. And what we found is that all the others, they decide to play the game and turn on age verification in France. So it's very important to have a very clear framework. I think we have it with the DSA. It's very important to have clear enforcement policies. And so then when you are, when people know you're going to act, they start to abide. And truth being said, there have always been solutions to check the age, but the solutions have improved and they're becoming commodities. So it's easier than ever for websites to check the age of the users, so no more excuses. And so the next step is for, along the European Commission, for the 27 of us to start implementing the DSA that is very clear that you have to check the age of your user when you are on other platforms.
Fab, thank you. And Jean-Michel, just very briefly, how do you feel that these expectations translate in practice for you as a platform? Are they clear and workable in reality?
Yes and no. I think we've got a good partner with VerifyMy to have a solid age verification solution on our platform, which we've enabled in the countries that are doing local laws. The problem is that a lot of countries are doing multiple implementations and interpretations of how age verification should be done. For example, in France, the session-based or hourly verification is completely different compared to the OSA in the UK. That makes it a little bit difficult to be compliant in each and every country. So I'd love to have one framework, one implementation, and one set of rules that everyone needs to abide to. And then multiple things I'd like to say when it comes to age verification. But the most important thing about age verification is everyone wants to prevent minors from accessing porn platforms. I think that is the biggest misconception about the adult space, is that people believe that we don't want to do anything against it. We'd love to do it, but we also see that people are targeting the bigger sites. As you truthfully said, we need to focus. We need to start somewhere. We focus on the big ones. Sure, if they go out of your country, traffic goes to zero. But where is the traffic going? Because people do want to see that content, and they're trying to find that content somewhere else. And I think in that regard, you need to have a more solid discussion with the players in the space to see how we can work together instead of ruling over the adult players in this space, which is one of the reasons why we're here.
Absolutely. Okay, so on age assurance, Tony, one of the challenges historically has been defining what effective age assurance actually means. So from a standards perspective, how do you define that today?
So age assurance, fundamentally, it can be done. There are lots and lots of different providers out there that are providing different solutions and different ways in which you can do it. And that in itself presents a challenge for standardization, but also an opportunity for industry and the sector, in that it's very context dependent. So how you're doing it, where you're doing it, and what you're doing it for becomes quite important when you come to specify what you want to do. What I will say is that I firmly believe that whatever the context, there is a way of doing it. If you give it enough thought, it's not particularly easy. And I do have some sympathy, not a huge amount of sympathy, but some sympathy for platforms who face up to the challenge of doing it. But they're big enough and bold enough to be able to work it out, is my view. It gets to a point where it is there. When you come to standardization, what we've tried to do with the standards globally is start with some core characteristics relating to functionality. What is it you're trying to do? Performance, how well do you do it? Privacy, so how do you secure people's personal data? Security, how resistant to attack is it? And acceptability, how inclusive is it? How do you complain about it if it goes wrong? Those are the 5 core principles laid out in the international standard. And then we've tried to wrap around that the concept of practice statements. And these are a really important transparency and accountability initiative, so that both the age assurance providers, but also the relying parties, the platforms, and everybody else in the whole ecosystem have a requirement in that international standard to set out publicly what they're doing and how they're going about it. So that people can hold them to account and can make that enforceable. I do tend to agree that sometimes the regulators are regulating over the whole market in a way that it is sort of focused on 2 bigger names at the start. And I understand exactly why that is the case. They're the bulk impacts, the bulk implementation. But if you're going to regulate a marketplace, you have to regulate the whole marketplace. You can't pick and choose who you're regulating, and so there is definitely a need to ensure that the 245 or so thousand adult websites that there are all regulated, and that presents a particular challenge in the European context because, of course, you have supranational regulation happening in the Commission at supranational level providers, and then the delegated regulation happening at a national level in relation to. So there's a lot of need for coordination and cooperation between the Commission and the individual regulators nationally, and that is then multiplied by the point that Jean-Michel made about around the world. You've then got regulators taking a slightly different approach. To be fair, I think they are improving on that. The Global Online Safety Regulators Network has issued some principles for regulation, which are being adopted. I've just been in Brazil, where they've adopted those principles in the Brazilian context. I mean, in the best will in the world, you'll never get to 100%. They all agree with everybody, but you should get to sort of 95% or so fairly consistently. That has been a huge change over the course of just the last year or two with that regulation cooperation and what's happening, and that will continue to improve as we get the international standards embedded and used and relied upon globally. Those international standards, by the way, ISO 27566 was adopted unanimously by all of the member states of the International Standards Organization. There were no dissenting voices on it.
Amazing. And Greta, just to sort of anchor that, could you briefly walk us through what the Commission's guidelines say specifically about adult platforms, and particularly in terms of what the age assurance measures they're expected to implement are?
Sure. The Commission guidelines on Article 28 set out what is expected from all adult platforms, so not only the very large ones, but also smaller ones, to comply with Article 28, and they do so also specifically with respect to age assurance. So first, the guidelines clarify that enforcing access restrictions based on age with effective age assurance measures is appropriate and proportionate to ensure a high level of privacy, safety, and security. Second, they clarify that age verification is the appropriate and proportionate measure to enforce access restriction based on age when the terms of service clarify that the platform is restricted for minors. So when the minimum age to access the service is 18 in the terms of service, even without a national or EU law prescribing this. And the guidelines also set out 5 criteria that any age assurance, including age verification, need to comply with. So age assurance need to be robust, meaning that the measure implemented should not be inherently easy for minors to circumvent. For example, checking that you're above the age of 18. It should also be accurate, so capable of correctly determining the age of the users requiring to access the service. It should be reliable, so capable of working in different real-life conditions and beyond the ideal labs one. And it should be non-intrusive, so among different and equally accurate and robust age assurance measures, the least intrusive with respect to data protection and privacy should be relied on. And finally, non-discriminatory. So it should be able, as Tony was also mentioning, it should be able to work for all users, regardless of language, background, disability, gender. So the guidelines also make a more concrete example of how an age verification can comply with this criteria. For example, if it's based on government-issued IDs, which do not provide any other additional data than the age to the platforms, and when they are based on anonymized age tokens, so the platform only receives an anonymous token saying that the user is yes or no above that age. So in short, the guidelines make it clear for all adult content platforms, except for smaller or micro enterprises, that age verification that is privacy preserving needs to be implemented.
Fab, thank you. So that's lots on the regulatory framework and what good looks like in theory, but I'd like to now bring this into sort of real world implementation. And Jean-Michel, starting with you and looking at implementation, can you talk us through your approach to rolling out age assurance? What drove the decision? How has that played out in practice?
I'm trying to keep it closer to my mic. Well, the reason to comply with age assurance, especially in the countries that now are actively enforcing it, is quite simple, right? It is actively enforced, so you need to do age assurance and age verification. The reason why we want to do it is because we do believe that as a platform, you have to take a responsibility. It's the reason why we have the RTA tag implemented to make sure that if people enable their parental controls, that people can't access our platform. But as we all see, parents are not doing that, children are circumventing that, so there needs to be an extra layer of security, and that's a responsibility that a platform can take by making sure that we've got age verification, age assurance in there. Also, everything has changed fastly in the past 3 years. If I look back at our discussions that we had 3 years ago about implementing age verification, was A, very expensive, which was a commercial argument for platforms such as ours and especially the big ones to not implement it. And B, it was difficult to see how to do it and to decide which partner to choose, because there was a multitude of partners where you can pick out, which you could pick. And we chose VerifyMy and to do the age verification and age estimation. AI made a big difference in that because suddenly age estimation was deemed to be appropriate as well. So for us, it was interesting to do the implementation and also to see what happened from a user perspective on the data that we have, because a lot of our competitive platforms think that they might lose money out of implementing age verification, and our data shows the opposite. So that's also quite an interesting approach.
Yeah, and are you seeing, would you say you're seeing differences across markets depending on how strongly these rules are enforced?
Look, from an ethical perspective, I'd love to implement it everywhere on the world. I'd love to enable it everywhere right here, right now. But as you also alluded to, the problem is that the moment that you enable it, either you need to, if you don't enable it, you lose your traffic. If you do enable it, you also lose traffic. So players in the adult space, they want to take their responsibility, but you also need to take into account your commercial effect that they feel for it. So that makes it a very difficult debate, because on the one hand, you have the ethical debate and the responsibility that platforms need to take, but those are commercial companies as well. And I think that makes it a difficult debate to have. And then you get the debate where the good actors are being punished, where the bad actors are the winner. Because if we enable it, but our main competitors don't, our fans don't care. They want to see the creators that they want to see. So if we enable age verification, but another platform that doesn't, where that creator is on, doesn't have age verification, the fan will go to that platform. And the same happens if you block Pornhub in France. People do want to see that content, so they will go to another platform, and you can't focus on that traffic anymore. And that is the whole difficulty in this decision.
Okay, interesting. And you were saying something, well, you sort of touched on it just then, but you were saying something to me the other day that I thought was a really interesting idea around the fact that age assurance could be looked at as being sort of beneficial for platforms commercially. So having these kind of verified environments could actually lead to higher intent users and therefore kind of a much cleaner ecosystem through there. So have you seen any early evidence of that so far, or anything that you could talk us through relating to that?
Absolutely, but you also need to make a difference between the commercial model of every adult platform. We are a subscription-based adult platform where people can become a fan of a creator. The fan can interact with that creator, and then specific videos or images can be requested, and for an extra payment they can be unlocked. So that is the whole business model of subscription-based fan engagement platforms, such as mine, OnlyFans, Just for Fans, Fansly, all those platforms out there. They roughly have the same economical model behind it. A platform such as Pornhub, for example, drives primarily on traffic and by selling the traffic. So my data, based on my business model, shows that it does a multitude of good things for my company. One, it's driving away the lurkers, people who don't want to spend money, don't want to verify, so they're out of that. I'm not too unhappy about that, because otherwise it costs me money to serve the free content to those specific users. Secondly, the verified users, so the people who do the verification, are more willing to spend money on the platform. So we see that twice as many people who do the verification are spending twice as much money. So for us, for our business model, it actually benefits us. But that doesn't mean that for the entire industry, it's a beneficial buy effect.
Super interesting, thank you. Tony, I guess from a standards perspective, would you say that platforms are meeting the standard that you'd expect at this stage?
I think I was just going to come back a
Please
little
do.
bit. I completely agree with what Jean-Michel was saying there. I think what we're seeing at the moment is a market adjustment to what these regulations are bringing in globally. And you have to say that the free view model the free view business model based on monetization of eyeballs is probably hold below the waterline when it comes to being a regulated space. But what isn't hold below the waterline is the subscription model. The people who pay for these kids have never paid for these services ever. They've never been a massive customer of these businesses. There may be one or two that have managed to get hold of mum or dad's credit card and put through a payment, but that it's very, very low numbers. Kids have relied on the free to view platforms for the access to the content that previously was unavailable to them. And what we've seen actually, when you look at payment data across the world and payments in the particular what are called MCC codes and what relate to this, the merchant category codes. Regulations come in, they do have an impact. There's a degree of impact there. The number of users does go down, and that some of those are hit by very large numbers in reduction. But payments don't. Payments have remained broadly similar to where they were previously. They went down slightly in Europe, they went up slightly in the UK, and they were about the same in the US on the states that have implemented it. So what you're seeing is a market adjustment to the way in which consumers now will consume this stuff. I also think that as consumers are developing an understanding of why these regulations are in place and why these rules are coming in, those that use these services are getting more invested in them by providing their identity, by providing their log-on details, and therefore entering into more of a customer relationship with the platforms that they have subscription to. And that means that they are building trust and building confidence, and therefore building a more willingness to spend money with the platforms. So this is not necessarily a bad thing. When we spoke to advertiser-based platforms that are basically self-advertising to eyeballs, not necessarily in the adult content, but in more general advertising, we know that advertisers want to be able to target their audience more and more specifically. The value of a verified audience is much higher than the value of an unverified audience. In fact, the international advertising, the big international advertising players automatically discounted X advertising by 40% on the basis that they couldn't verify their users. And that led to X implementing some user verification, not age verification, but some user verification, because it's responding to that advertiser need. So it's a misnomer to say that this is bad for the industry and it's going to cause the industry to collapse. It's going to cause the industry to change, but I don't think it's going to cause it to collapse. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. Just dealing with your question last of all in relation to standards, it's very early days. The ISO standard was published in December. We've got the first age assurance providers working their way through that. We're aiming to make announcements about the first ones to be certified in the next couple of weeks, and Verify My are very much in the running for that, which I'm very pleased about. And we expect to see that roll over a period of time. I always say when it comes to standards, what you want to see in the future is people just have confidence in the international standards, in how things work. You all came in here and you all, without thinking about it, sat down on those chairs. If you look on the bottom of that chair, you'll find the international standard number that made that chair safe, made it suitable, made it applicable, made it the right height, made it all the things that you need for it to be a chair. It's written on the bottom of the chair. It is where you want to get to with age assurance. You just use it, and everyone becomes trusting in it. They become trusting in the standards that underpin it, in the global ecosystem that makes it. You have millions of different types of chairs, but they're all made to the same international standards.
Thank you. Yeah, of course.
To just quickly add to that, it is one of our arguments as well. If age verification has a fully standardized way of doing so, I'd love to have device identification. I don't understand why Apple and Google are not solving this for everyone. But if age verification is done on all social media platforms across the board, if it's done, if you want to open up an account on Facebook, on Meta, on Instagram, on TikTok, on Reddit, on X, whatever, then the people will be more adjusted to the fact that to use social media, you need to have an age insurance and age verification. Get me wrong, I'm not saying that they should give their identity and take anonymity away from the internet. I'm not saying that at all, but I'm saying that now you are doing something, you're putting age verification, which you're not used to do, on something that people are already feeling a little bit ashamed about, consumption of adult content. And that is where the industry is coming from when they are trying to hold back a little bit. I speak to a lot of people in the industry. Everyone wants this problem to be solved. No one wants children on their website. We need to protect the internet. We need to protect children from seeing content that they shouldn't see. But it is a broader discussion. So I wanted to add that to what you said. Yeah.
Any more on that? Or no? Okay. Well, I'm conscious of time, so I essentially want to end on two final questions for everyone. But I would like to ask you all: would you say that we're at a genuine breakthrough moment in protecting minors from adult content, or would you say we're still relatively early on in the journey? Jeremy, maybe I'll start with you.
I think we're in it, and for a long time. It will depend how the markets react, because there is the adult questions, which should have been solved for years. Now everybody is waking up. I'm not frightened about market fragmentation and regulations. The website we went after that did nothing, they could have done something. And the ones we started, and they were the most visited ones, they were virtually doing nothing. The website, the commission opened inquiries and sent preliminary findings. They've done nothing. You could access just, saying, yes, I am over 18 and I was accessing the content. So it's not a situation where people are trying to be 100% on the line of the regulation and the requirements. It's a situation where lots of guys are doing nothing. And and we went after this. I would love to have a discussion about how you fine-tune your age verification scheme, how you align on the standards that are being adopted. This is not the conversation we're having with the major players. So this is the situation. It's year zero for age verification on most websites, and truth to be said, websites that do live on payments, they are on the better side of the histories than the other ones. But you have to start somewhere, and so you start with a situation where lots of the industry is doing nothing about it. And I understand the level playing field argument, but so it's true for all EU member states. So this is why we are kickstarting enforcement everywhere in the EU. It is true for the big websites. And then when hopefully there will be a trickle-down effect, and that when the big players show the example, you have age solutions that find better economic models, so it makes it cheaper and can be adopted to the vast majority of players who want to be aligned with the law and want to remain in the market, because it's a choice. You're choosing to be in this industry. You're choosing to have adults or not only in your platform. So there's a lot of choices that are being made by entrepreneurs, and so it is up to them. And that's the very essence of the DSA, that is to make platform responsible for what they're doing. And then after adult, there is the question of age-appropriate experience. There is the question of digital majority. I was in another room talking about this for France. And so there is, we've given the same fonts to minors that we are using as adults. And now we are unhappy because they're doing adult stuff with adult tools. So then there's the question of platform being responsible, and then devices being age-aware. And protecting minors, you will need different layers of protection. Platforms have responsibility, manufacturers have responsibility, lawmakers and regulators have responsibility. But if we want to be serious about protecting minors, we have to have a multi-layer policies.
And if I may build on what Jeremy has just shared and to come back to your question, I think we're starting to see the first meaningful results of enforcing the DSA provisions related to minors, and the preliminary findings against the 4 adult platforms are a testament to that and are a signal that we are actually at a turning point and with respect to the pre-DSC era. But that being said, I think there is still road ahead of us. First, because enforcement of the DSA, as was mentioned by the other panelists, is not limited to very large online platforms. So national authorities do play a key role in making sure that minors are protected against exposure to pornographic content as well. And as Jeremy said, national authorities are also taking coordinated actions against smaller platforms that are non-compliant to make sure that they also ensure that minors are protected. And second, even with respect to the findings of the Commission against Pornhub, StripChat, X and Xvideos, we could say that this marks as well the beginning of a process. Now these platforms will exercise their right to defense, access the investigation files, reply to the Commission's preliminary findings, and they may also adopt measures that would remedy the Commission concerns. However, if the Commission ultimately confirms its findings, then this could lead to a non-compliant decisions, which in turn may mean up to 6% of worldwide total annual turnover. So I think we are definitely at a turning point, but somehow also at the early stages of seeing the DSA fully enforced across the EU. Yes.
Thank you. Tony, I don't know if you slightly answered this earlier, but whether there's anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think we are at any point, and I think there's a recognition of the role of regulation, of the role of big tech and big companies in terms of how they protect children and deliver age-appropriate experiences for children. At the moment, over the course of the last 5 years, there's been a lot of deflection, a lot of this is not our problem, this is nothing to do with us, it's a parent's issue and stuff like that. I hope it's bigger than this, but I point to a report in 1979, which is, 40 odd years ago now. It was by the US Surgeon General. And at the time, the US Surgeon General wrote a detailed report about tobacco tactics, about how they were deflecting responsibility away from their product, which was addictive and was causing harm to children and causing long-term health impacts and causing all kinds of issues, how they were deflecting it to parents, how they were saying it couldn't be controlled, how they were saying it couldn't be regulated. And there's this report from 1979, the Surgeon General in the US. You could take that entire report, and I have done this, you take the entire report, cross out the word tobacco and put big tech, and it stands exactly as it stood almost 50 years ago. I think there is a need to wake up to the fact that these products, these services are being used by children, not just talking about pornography, but also talking about addictive, time-consuming, attention-consuming, eyeball-based, sticky technologies that are addictive and are causing considerable short and long-term harm to the educational prospects of children, to their development, to their socialization skills, and to various other aspects of their life. And the time for deflecting that and walking away from it is gone. You've got to live up to it. You've got to stand up and do your part as a provider of these services, and make sure you've got age-appropriate experiences for those all those users.
Thank you so much. And last but not least.
I think we're right in the middle of it, and it's the start. And I also think that in 5 years' time, we've got no idea what we were talking about today because everyone will have implemented it. I think big tech is the right word there. I think that if it's done all across the board, and it will be a standardized way of making sure that people who are accessing your website is of the right age, then everyone will have done that. And yeah, I don't have anything to add to that. Let's keep it at that, and let's keep the internet safe.
Absolutely. Okay, well, I think we are fully out of time now, but thank you so much to my fabulous panelists. Do we have time for any questions or?
You can take time for one question. Do we have one question? I can move with the microphone. Is there someone that has a question? Yes.
Hi guys, thanks again for the panel. It was such interesting, but we were talking a lot about safety. We all, I think, here to say that we have to protect our miners, but we were talking about safety and not security, and we know that many platforms get breached, so you didn't talk about how we'll get, how, you know, IDs safe or be ourselves. And I think it's mostly one of the biggest question and issue since we've didn't know if, you know, our governments or any second, you know, platform, how they will ensure that the data, the IDs that we'll put there will be safe, because it will maybe cause a lot of damages if they get breached.
Thank you. That's a really important question. And I, when it comes to GDPR, I say to clients when they're looking at compliance to GDPR is really, really, really easy to comply with. First of all, don't collect any data. If you don't collect the data in the first place, you haven't got to look after it. Second of all, if you do have to collect data for a particular purpose, use it only for that purpose and get rid of it as quickly as you possibly can. And that way you're also protecting the data. And third of all, I always say never get a lawyer to write your privacy policy. Those are really simple things. But when you apply that to age assurance, this is really, really important. There's absolutely, once you've answered the question, is this person old enough to be able to access this platform? There's absolutely no need to keep any of that information or any of that data. You've answered the question. You've addressed the risk that you're applying. The problem comes when people have to, oh, I have to keep it. Maybe the regulator will ask me. Maybe I'll need to give this information to the police, or maybe I'll. All of that is people trying to anticipate what regulators or others, you know, auditors or anybody else might want in the future. Actually, when you talk to the regulators, they go, well, we're never going to ask about that individual case. We want to know that the overall system is operating properly. So really, really think very carefully about whether you actually need to, A, collect any data in the first place. A lot of the systems are on device and are not connected to servers or onto storage. And B, if you do have to collect data, use it for its purpose and then get rid of it as quickly as you possibly can. It's like a hot potato. You don't want it in your hands.
And if I may jump in on that as well, that's a very important question. But as you may know, member states are in the process of providing citizens, every citizen, with the opportunity of having an EU digital identity wallet. So they're in the process of providing citizens with that. And also with the wallet, there is the opportunity to provide platforms with very specific information, such as exclusively whether you are above or below a certain age. But even before the EU digital identity wallet will become available, the Commission has worked to provide member states or market players with an EU age verification solution that is uniquely privacy preserving and that enables a platform to receive exclusively the indication of whether that user is above or below a certain age. And this is open source, it's fully open source, so it's up for not only member states now to integrate that, either in their wallet or as a standalone app, but being open source, it can also be taken up and developed by market players or also partner countries such as Australia, Singapore, India. So there is important development also with respect to data protection, data minimizing, privacy preserving way of ensuring age verification.
With this, I think, yes, thank you very much. Just say that Clément did not introduce himself. Clément just is a top French ethical hacker. So I'll be very happy to connect you if you don't meet, or maybe later in the future. But so Clément, you've been very shy and modest, but it's, I guess, maybe some discussion between you in the future. So thank you, Clément, for the question. Thank you, Emma, for this very important panel. Thank you to all our panelists. So hopefully you will continue the discussion. And next year, I think there have been a big change from this year compared to last year. I think there was a big change, and also with this ISO standards, very important developments. So things are moving. So that's good. Thank you for your time today and putting this important topic on the